While every national park helps provide its surrounding region with a distinctive sense of place, the relationship between Saguaro National Park and the Tucson community is unique because essentially this is a 90,000-acre wilderness park that is literally adjacent to an urban area of 1 million people. This close juxtaposition presents challenges as well as opportunities, so Friends of Saguaro was created to strengthen these connections between people and place, while helping the Park Service address the challenges such as fragmented wildlife habitat, negative use impacts on resources, and threats to the park's biodiversity. Federal funding alone is not sufficient to sustain our national parks. Private sector funding and volunteer support are also required. Friends of Saguaro raises money and recruits volunteers to encourage the exploration and discovery of the resources, heritage, and recreational opportunities of Saguaro National Park, to assist the preservation and conservation of the natural and cultural resources within the park, and to build environmental stewardship to support the park. To achieve our goals, we're building and strengthening collaborative partnerships within the community and enhancing local capacity for community engagement in conservation and resource stewardship. Tucson is home to the University of Arizona and a large number of well-established environmental research organizations, such as the Arizona Sonora Desert Museum, the Sky Island Alliance, and the Sonoran Institute. So Friends of Saguaro actively pursues collaborative partnerships for many of our projects at the park. Additionally, Tucson is an outdoor-oriented community with a large population of active, well-educated retirees, providing a large pool of potential volunteers for community conservation activities. We're an effective organization because of the park's close proximity to the community. Class field trips to the park engage students in hands-on, place-based activities, so Friends of Saguaro reimburses local schools for field trip transportation costs. Mountain lions, bobcats, and bears from the park can occasionally be seen in residential neighborhoods, so the need for wildlife research and the protection of habitat and movement corridors is well understood by local residents. Tucson is a community that is involved with conservation activities, and it's a community that loves this national park. Our metrics of success are essentially money raised, donors engaged, partnerships sustained, and volunteers involved. Friends of Saguaro believes in accountability and transparency, and the organization has consistently been named a top-rated environmental nonprofit by Great Nonprofits. Maintaining steady growth in our donor base, we've strengthened our relationships with collaborative partners throughout the community and generated sustained involvement from our volunteers. Many people mistakenly believe that funding support for our national parks comes solely from the federal government. It doesn't. Or that Friends organizations, such as us, receive government funding. We don't. We're a 501c3 nonprofit working in partnership with the National Park Service to provide private sector support for project priorities at Saguaro National Park. Friends successfully partnered with the University of Arizona and local environmental organizations to help the Park Service conduct wildlife research at the park, focusing on species such as Sonoran desert tortoises, Gila monsters, and lesser long-nosed bats, all threatened by the changing climate, and species such as mountain lions, bobcats, and bears, all impacted by development in the urban interface. We partnered with the Arizona Trail Association, recruited volunteers, and secured a $400,000 grant to help the park build a 5-mile section of trail in rugged terrain. Our broad base of hundreds of volunteers helped the park pull, by hand, invasive African bufflegrass that infests hundreds of acres of park land. And in 2011, we partnered with the National Park Service and National Geographic to host a 24-hour BioBlitz species inventory at Saguaro raising more than $100,000 in private sector support and recruiting nearly 6,000 volunteers, including nearly 3,000 students, all to participate in this effort to document the park's incredible biodiversity. The uncertainty of federal funding levels from year to year is often problematic for our donors. Private sector donors want to know that the federal government is a reliable project partner. Recent federal budget reductions and the likelihood that those budget cuts will be extended in the coming years means that we must often raise more private money and recruit more volunteers to compensate for the reduced federal share of many of these projects. Because of Saguaro's close proximity to a growing urban area and the diminished federal support, there is an increasing need for private sector support for the park's interpretive, educational, and resource protection programs. With more money, we could help the park replace woefully outdated, 55-year-old interpretive exhibits. We could enable more students to visit the park on school field trips. And, with more resources and volunteers, the park would be able to undertake critically needed research to better understand the emerging impacts of climate change and urban development on park wildlife and habitat. The National Park Service generally, and Saguaro National Park specifically, have a need to recruit candidates to provide a source of diverse, motivated, and well-trained employees that reflect local communities. Yet there is currently no systemic process for creating this next generation of stewards for our national parks. With additional dedicated resources, Friends of Saguaro would like to create a next-generation endowment that could annually fund student research at the park and help foster the next generation of resource professionals for Saguaro National Park.